Bill, you ready? Nathan, you ready? Mm-hmm. Okay, get started. Hello, welcome to our meeting of the Utah County Board of Commissioners. As usual, we'll begin with looking to those who are with us for a volunteer, for someone to lead us in a prayer, reading, or a pledge, or a prayer, reading, or a thought, and someone else to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have any volunteers? Okay, I think we got a prayer, reading, or thought, and then the pledge. If you would come up, state your name, and lead us, that'd be great.
Art Troyer. Our Father in heaven, we humbly bow our heads before Thee at this time, at this commission meeting. We're grateful for these commissioners. We're grateful for the privilege of living in a free country. We ask Thou please bless us today, that what happens will be what should happen, and that they'll be guided and directed. We ask a special blessing be upon the world today as we battle a pandemic, and as we are now battling riots that we'll be able to control and bring peace to this world. We humbly pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll now go through the process of building our agenda. Anything that we do not hold for discussion will be placed on the consent agenda and approved. I do not have anything to hold on the consent. So, anyone else?
Just for on 2 and 3, it's missing the signature pages. I think that we just need to make sure that they're on there. On number 2 and 3. It's fine to leave it on consent as long as, just with an understanding that there is signature pages.
Okay,
And on number 11, this is one I know we've been working on. I'm wondering if we shouldn't hold this to go into a work session first. Looking for Richard, wherever he's at. Oh, there you are. If we shouldn't hold this to go to a work session. I know it's just an application, but there's been a lot of talk back and forth on what that looks like. Would you be opposed if we took it to a work session for?
I don't have any issue with that.
That's fine. So you want to strike this one and then just, or,
Can we just move it to the next work session? Okay. Which should just be next week.
Yeah, I think the question would be, the work session will kind of be its own thing, right? So do we want this item to be stricken, or do we want this item continued to our next county commission meeting,
Oh, I see.
knowing that
Yeah.
it will be on a work session
Oh,
in
let's just do
between?
that. Let's do that. Yeah.
Strike it?
Let's strike it.
Okay.
okay.
That way we can just put it on a work session if you do that.
And I'm fine with it going consent for strike.
Can we hold number 15? Those are the only ones I had on consent.
Okay. Commissioner Ivey, anything else on consent? Okay. We will now look to the regular agenda.
Number 1.
Okay, you're gonna hold number 1. I think we should hold 2 and 3. I'll hold number 8 for just a brief note.
We hold number 20 and 21.
Yes. Okay, anything else from you, Commissioner Lee?
No.
Okay, so for the items, any item that was not referenced or held for discussion will now be approved on our consent agenda. I'd like to just give a moment in case anyone is following that process and has comment on any of the items that will automatically be approved. Go ahead.
Did you want to have further discussion on the item number 14? That was our security.
Do you know what? I'm glad you raised that. I don't think that we
never finalized.
we never updated the new item, and that was the plan, right?
Right.
And so if there's no urgency, should we, thank you for bringing this up, should we continue this until we get it updated, or do you want to just move forward with this one?
I think we're prepared to tell you what we would like to do as far as finalized figures go. And so from there, if we can amend the ordinance, or if you prefer that I work with court and have them submit a new one, we can do that.
Let's just hold that for discussion then.
Okay.
If you're, because you're saying you're prepared today for what you would want to drop in, so we could approve the amendment to the ordinance with the numbers that you'll present? Okay, so we'll keep that held as well.
I'm good with that.
Okay, seeing no, yes.
On my item, I uploaded the fee schedule.
Mhm.
It didn't reflect it being uploaded on the agenda, although I know it's there. So, are there any questions? Did you see that? Did you need to do that?
I think we were able to see it. I don't
Yeah,
know
it
if it's
was-
via
I saw it.
email
That
or,
was fine.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
On mine, it was okay.
Okay. Seeing no other comment, we'll now move to those items that we held. Which, I guess the first one is item 15, on consent.
Let's see, isn't 4,
Didn't you ask for 15 on consent? The tractor one?
okay. I would, this one here, there was some minor hiccups in the process that kind of happened. And I would actually, I'm not opposed to the, the purchase of the tractor or anything of that nature. I think it's just on a funding source basis that there's some discussion that never really materialized or finalized.
Okay.
I would like to continue this till our next meeting so that we can have some discussion, even amongst the commission, on where the funding sources come from on that.
Yeah, there's no urgency on it, so.
That's basically it. There was just that little hiccup in which it kind of was a little bit out of process, and
Sure.
so that discussion really didn't materialize as much. We tried to a little bit through the process, but it didn't quite materialize.
And if there's questions you have for our office, just let me know and we can try to answer those for you, so.
So
Okay.
I just
I have
recommend
no
that we
issue.
continue it.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion that we continue published consent agenda item number 15 till our next commission meeting.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to continue item number 15 to our next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, we move to regular agenda item number 1.
Thank you. As many of you are aware, we've had some significant challenges to our TRCC funding, which has resulted in us pulling back on many of the festivities and activities that we traditionally have in the county. But we've all had a desire to make sure that we could do what we could. And when we announced that we would be postponing the fair, there was a desire from all three commissioners to try and do something. And so we were able to get together with the junior livestock people that organized the junior livestock portion of the county fair and come up with some numbers for prizes, judges, and what it would take to put on that livestock show. And I got with Dave Shawcroft, our attorney, and asked what the best way to kind of handle and facilitate this would be. And so what we have here before us today in regular agenda item number 1 is approval and authorization for the event to occur. We would be funding the event at $25,000. This money would be coming from our TRCC funding revenue source, which we had originally budgeted close to $150,000 for the fair, but because of lost revenue, we've scaled that back. And so this funding amount would give us the opportunity to hold the junior livestock show and to see that go forward. It would be held the same week as the county fair is at the fairgrounds. We have that week of the fairgrounds as the county. We've coordinated with Nick, who manages the fairgrounds at Spanish Fork, and he's assured us that the fairgrounds crew will have everything in line and in order to make this happen. I know in conversation with the livestock committee, there was some talk of possibly even having a sale for this year only at this livestock event because of the earlier spring show being canceled. I don't know where we're on that, and I'm sure some members of the public will be able to speak to that. Ben, even if you could maybe come forward to address it first. And so that's kind of the basics of this proposal and where we're at. And I'll turn some time, if it's okay with the other two commissioners, at this point to Ben, who kind of chairs and heads up the committee side of that, to speak it to us.
Yes, and right before, as you make this comment, one thing that has come to my mind, we didn't get a chance, as is often the case, to discuss this much before it comes before this meeting. And I think that there's another potential funding source for this. You know, I am supportive of making sure that we have something that continues the program for the kids to the extent we can. And because we are making significant modifications to the traditional program, trying to make it socially distant, you know, at one point I even heard the idea that Junior Livestock Show might even be broadcast online in some way for the show or for the contestants. And you know, they've had other hardship in getting ready for this, including the spring sale, so that, you know, this natural forum that everyone, our 4-H participants normally build up for, has been, you know, disrupted significantly because of COVID-19 and the regulations. So I think that some of the COVID funds could be an eligible expense here. And so I just have a question mark about which pool or which budget we would pull this from, but I'm supportive of doing whatever we can here.
Okay, I'm Ben Mengelson, one of the many committee members that's built on this over numerous years. I've been a part of it for about, I don't know, 12 to 15, at least on kind of a front runner scale there. Any questions you have for us specifically?
Maybe if you could just explain to us primarily where this money's going. You know, I tried to give a general overview of it, where we're at in the process of a potential sale, and stuff. So maybe just a brief overview of how that will be managed and handled, and where these monies will be going more specifically.
Okay, so I have the specific numbers that I can email to all three of you of participants and entries that we had last year. But basically, we have 275 participants exhibiting market steers, breeding heifers, market lambs, market hogs, and market goats. Market goats has been just an up and coming in the last 3 years, and it's broadened the scope of a backyard project for some of the city kids, as well as some of the traditional farm animals that are being shown. Just to give you an idea, on a payout exhibit, so with our county fair, we've never wanted to compete and expect the local businesses to support both a sale in the spring in May with the Utah State Junior Livestock Show, where kids from all across the whole state are invited to come to the county fair and ask the businesses to support our local kids again. So we've never done a sale. With that, we've worked with the county commissioners for numerous years, and with the funding, so specifically last year, if they brought a beef to the show and participated, they would receive approximately $100 for exhibiting their market animal that would be judged and placed, so on and so forth. The top end animal, so last year we had 24 steers. The grand champion, the best of the show, would receive an additional $300 and a belt buckle and some prizes, of course, recognition. Just to kind of give you an idea, our county, Utah County, competes. There's usually 5 open shows throughout the state in a year. A majority of those shows, including our own in Spanish Fork in May, 50 to 60% of those prizes and awards and major buckles go back to our Utah County kids. The next show that we go to participate in Delta, and when the Utah County kids come, we're extremely competitive, but we also we love each other, and it's as a family. So when we go to these other shows, when the other counties see us walk in, they're like, "Oh, great, here comes Utah County kids," because we'll walk into their show, state-funded show, and walk out of there with 50 to 60% of their prizes as well. In years past, I've told the county commissioners that we'd love to have you come at those award programs, and you're always invited. The reason I bring that up is we're also nationally known. These kids travel not only inside the state of Utah, but western United States, from Montana to California and to Arizona, multiple times throughout the year. So when we have our Utah County Fair, we might not be huge in numbers, 275 exhibits, but the quality of the livestock is extremely high. We hire these judges that come in that do this professionally. Most of them are college professors. They evaluate the livestock, but they also mention how wonderful our scenery is and how beautiful this valley is, but also how grateful they are for family, how grateful they are for respectful young men and young women. When you go to other events, sometimes when the winner, who thinks the winner might not win, sometimes you might hear boos from the crowd. Quite the opposite. If none of you have been to a junior livestock show, I encourage you to come. But for these kids to show off their exhibits that a lot of times takes them months, if not years, in preparation. A lot of our breeders breed their own animals and as a livelihood, and raise these animals for food and to help feed the community as well. So we have 24 market steers, 22 breeding heifers, 129 lambs. So the heifer's the same. If they bring a breeding heifer, is $100. Market lambs, if they came, would be $70. Hogs, $70, and goats, $70. So if you tally those up, and then along with the grand champion, I said, would receive an additional $300. The second place, or what we call the reserve champion, receives $150. By the time we pay for a judge, buckles, we also have some shavings and a few other expenses, it comes to about $28,000. We've really appreciated the support in the past. And you ask yourself, well, how is it you're spending 28,000 when we only receive 20 to 22 to 25? We do have local businesses that want to continue to support, and so we subsidize it. We also have a full livestock committee of about 40 members that volunteer all of their time and efforts to make that work. We work hand in hand with Nick Hanks and, of course, the crew that's right there. We've also worked and seen some great progress within lighting and worked directly with Utah County Power in years past in upgrades. It's just a wonderful program that teaches kids respect, love, and unity. And also, at the end of the day, we're feeding America, trying to feed the people, and we know exactly where our food comes from and what goes into it. And that's just a brief summary of the passion that we have. As much as we have it for our livestock, our main focus and drive is the youth. This committee is absolutely phenomenal. The countless hours, time, and effort that goes into to help these kids within our county is bar none. I've worked on numerous committees, and this committee is just absolutely phenomenal, and we've surely appreciated your help and support in the past. I don't know if you have any specific questions beyond that.
I don't. Thank you, and as you're well aware, Ben, we've had multiple conversations and telephone calls this last little while, and this is exactly what I was thinking about when we were postponing the fair. When I made the statement of we got to see if there's an opportunity for something to happen, and so I am all supportive of this program. I also would like to look at what we could do on a 4-H level with, some of the displays that they have there as well. I think that for the youth and those that display there, if we could do it in an appropriate way, I think that still should be on the table for consideration. But I would have worn my little hoodie that you gave me with the junior livestock, but it's just too hot outside. I don't know how you're wearing that thing.
I work in a cooler all day. I get cold at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it takes me till about 5 o'clock at night to get where I peel this off. So.
Oh, well done. I mean, it's I can sense that we'll go forward with this and
just a couple of side notes that I think that we have in our advantage as well. Being the 10th of August, the week of the 10th, there is a Jackpot Series. Now, a Jackpot Series is not necessarily, it's kind of like accelerated baseball if you want to look at it that way. So there's a bunch of these jackpots that are starting to arise. A bunch of us will be heading out to Uinta Basin. Their show that we normally attend and the whole state's is going on right now, today. And it's tough. These kids are not there. But they do have a jackpot on Friday and Saturday. We're going to be going there, myself included, as I'm looking back there. Everybody on that back wall will be in the Uinta Basin. We're going to be looking very closely at how they're running it, the precautions that they're under, and we'll definitely be working closely with the health department, of course, Spanish Fork City, and under your direction to be safe at that point, whatever that is. And we'll be attending multiple jackpots leading up to that. My family alone, I'm just looking. Roach, how many shows will you be attending between now and 3, 4, 5? So there's many shows in between that we're going to be able to learn from their mistakes before our show hits. So
And I'm not sure, I know Commissioner Ivey mentioned, so talk about the spring sale.
Yes.
What was the issue there?
So on the sale, so we held off. A majority of everybody that's here is also on that Utah State Junior Livestock Committee. It got canceled. We held off until 2 weeks before the show. In fact, the president, Dwight Lydiard's here on that committee. We held off in hopes that we'd be able to have a show and a sale. They have gone since and done some virtual shows. That's pretty tough, but they have done them. But they canceled the sale. So to give you an idea, to be market ready, you can't just all of a sudden pause the project and take it from May that was going to be shown the very first week to August 10th. So most of these animals have already been processed without going to the show and sold on the open market, and we didn't have any problem finding buyers for all of these animals. Lisa Olson was right at the front of that project, and through Facebook, through email, through Caitlin Hepworth and the 4-H Extension, reached out to all of these kids and said, if anybody needs help selling your project, please reach out. I don't have an exact number of how many we helped out, but there wasn't one that reached out that we weren't able to help sell their animal.
great.
With that, the local businesses that normally come out you know, this was tough times. COVID-19 hit. A lot of people are pulling back. But the businesses that we still have a majority of businesses that are reaching out, still wanting to support and encourage these kids with their projects. So you take that out. You take a sale out that normally, if a young man, I'm going to lean towards Shane here really quick. If a young man or young woman would sell a steer at the sale, they would average sale $2,200. So they missed that sale in May. They missed the sale in Delta. They missed the sale in Vernal. They missed the sale in Farron. So there's 4 sales of animals that they've already purchased, had on feed, and so you can see the significant how much they're out. On hogs, they average, KD Roach, around 500. Do the math on those shows. Lambs are close to the same, $400 to $500, and goats are actually, surprisingly enough, higher than that. So goats are an extremely high demand item right now amongst our community. So it takes a significant hit. Feed costs continue to rise. They haven't even begun to slump off during this. And so it's really tough to keep these kids encouraged during hard times, but it's definitely one that in the classroom, and we have one of our teachers here as well, that's going to be learned. They're going to learn from this experience and be taught from the classroom for many years to come. One of the major things that it's been interesting to me is what is classified as a necessity. And our food source is definitely a necessity. And so these kids can soon realize that, you know what, you are part of a group in a nation. 3% of the population of the United States is involved in feeding 95% of the world. I don't know if that's an exact figure, but I'll pull that out. Pretty
You're a
close.
little high. It's just under 2%.
All right, a little high. Well, there's some hobby farmers that we consider ourselves, we'd like to be full-time farmers. How's that?
So, I mean, that's helpful. Certainly, there are lessons learned, and
Yeah.
it's encouraging to hear that all the 4-H projects were able to be sold. But so, is there anything that you think, in addition to this, would kind of help? Because I'm happy to move forward with this. I think I would modify this to say, approve a modified junior livestock show due to the canceled county fair because of COVID-19, and authorize the expenditure of up to, and this is what I'm trying to figure out is if the unique circumstances of this year merit perhaps a different amount. So we can pass it as is, but I just didn't know. You kind of said that it was taken care of, then you also said that the kids in the program and the community in general still is missing out on a lot of shows. Is there something that can be done in this show that would help out with that?
Cleaning supplies? Yeah. So Lisa's kind of chiming in on one of the things. So to compete, how do I gonna explain this? To be able to compete with a high quality animal is not just your average feedlot animal. I'm gonna turn to Commissioner Ivey. He raises horses. Well, you can find horses on KSL from free to $500, but that's what you're gonna get is a free horse to $500. The quality of the animals that we're selling here not only are genetically more sound and stable, but they're fed and pampered and extremely healthy. So do they sell for more than market value? Absolutely, on a normal year. So yeah, there's a significant hit there. We'd take any suggestions and ideas. We wanted to wait until we for sure had the green light, and as soon as we get this out, we're going to pull our committee together and definitely have some meetings. I've invited Commissioner Ivey. I'll let him know exactly what date that we meet and time, and be able to visit and work out some more ideas on what we can do to help
I mean,
these kids.
if that's the sense, and I think you're sensing that there's clear kind of this is going to move forward. But the question is, do we need to approve this now, or do we let this be built out a little bit more now that you know that there's support for this to happen, but as you work out the details, and do we want it to come back with more detail? Do you just want to approve it now?
I think we need to start with this and approve it. And I don't know, do you still have your judges coming?
So I was hoping that Tina
'Cause
Morgan
that was part of the
came.
problem.
That's part of the, yeah. So part of the things, some of the things we need to get moving on, such as awards and a judge, to get a judge to come in. And we're confident that we will be able to find one. But that does cost just a little bit. But our main thing is so we need to get the word out to our exhibitors and the community and the kids and the 4-H and the FFA that we are moving forward and that we have your support. If we can do that tonight or today, that would be a huge step forward in the right direction. And if you want to approve another $25,000 at a later time, Commissioner Ainge, that'd be just fine with us.
I think it's, I don't mind at all looking at the different funding sources. I think there's some hoops we'd have to jump through with that. One, this was kind of in our budget, it was already budgeted, which is probably a little bit of a hiccup as we're looking at COVID-19.
Well, yes and no, though, right? Because this was not a standalone modified junior livestock show was not in our budget, right? We typically have a county fair, and this is part of it. And because we had to cancel the county fair, we're trying to do something that's never been done before in the county.
Right. Yeah, but it still showed up in our line item as a budgeted item within that. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we don't look at it. I'm saying that we do look at it, but I'm saying that I think that we could pass this, and I don't know if the wording makes a difference or not on how it's passed or where the funding comes from, but I think it'd be nice to at least have that behind us and then move forward.
So Rob, I'd look to you on that. Would it make sense for us to pass this with the addition of the verbiage in response to COVID, just in case there's a possibility, as we dive into some of those regulations of using some of that funding? Does that help us out there?
You could do that. Clearly, we'd need to look at those to see if we qualify for COVID-19 funding.
And this money doesn't mean anything to you. I mean, it's still 25,000.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter which bucket it comes from. It's just more for us, which way it's funded. So, I mean, passed, and it would allow for the up to $25,000 there. Gives you some security. You can move forward with it, and then behind the scenes, we're trying to find out how it all works.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I'd entertain a motion on number 2.
Okay. I'll move that we approve.
Sorry, no, item number 1.
Number 1. I'll move that we approve regular agenda item number 1 with the notation that this is in response to the cancellation of the 2020 Utah County Fair due to COVID circumstances, and the rest of the verbiage will remain the same.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 1 as stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who came.
Thank you. Okay, we have a second agenda item to approve the signing of the development agreement. This came before us. Did this come before us, or was it on a work session?
So this came 2 weeks ago. We realized we had not notified the Troyers. So number 2 and number 3 are together.
Right.
And let me just give you a little history, and I'll let Bryce jump in and add to it. In April of 2019, and this initially came before you to consider the rezone request, so number 3 came before you. There was a lot of discussion. I think it may have continued a couple times, possibly, I don't remember, but there was a lot of discussion that went back and forth regarding it. Ultimately, the commission decided that at the time they were going to continue it without date and allow for a development agreement to be prepared that would give the Troyers 2 additional development lots so that they could develop in the canyon, in Payson Canyon. As part of that, you requested that I prepare a development agreement that would allow for that, but just allow for those, basically enough to do those 2. So I did that, and that development agreement, with the calculations from community development, we determined that it's about 9 acres was needed. So the minimum lot size would be 9 acres. The commission gave some direction at the time, by the way, for us to do that. also the commission said that once that development agreement is prepared, then the Troyers are to go out and get it signed by all parties and then brought back together with the rezone and the fully signed development agreement. I have heard from the Troyers a couple times since then. I think the development agreement was prepared and sent out in August of 2019. And I heard from them, I think, last fall and maybe this spring a little bit, that they were having some difficulty with one of the property owners. There was some property within the proposed rezone that was annexed into Payson City as well. So there have been a couple of changes since the development agreement initially went out. But my understanding is they have it fully signed with the exception of one property owner who is unwilling to sign. That's where I understand we are today. And I think they were trying to figure out what they should do if one property owner will not sign. And I suggested to them that they talk to the commission about coming back on and they can discuss it with you. Anything else you want to add to that, Bryce?
Bryce Armstrong, Community Development Staff. No, I think Mr. Moore captured the essence of why we're here. The one parcel obviously cannot be included because it's now in the city, Payson City. And
That's a
then-
different parcel than the one who won't
Correct.
sign.
And then the parcel that they're having a problem with getting the party's signature. There may be some
Insight into that, because I know that that was a big part of the discussion back when this originally came before us, was, hey, if the city of Payson wants to annex this, great. Why don't you go talk to the city of Payson? And it sounded like at that point, the city of Payson did not have interest, or I forget exactly. I just knew that perhaps that was pursued, but there was no legs there. But now, to know that there was a parcel within this area that was annexed, I'm curious, do you have a perspective on that? Has the city of Payson changed their view potentially with respect to the property in question?
I guess, yeah, perspective is probably a better word than insight. I think the parcel that's the subject parcel that was annexed may have some of its area over the ridge onto the front side. I think it was part of a larger group of properties that was already in the city that was under development consideration in the city. And if I recall from some third-hand conversations I've heard from Payson City, that property may have been part of the agreement to provide some open space or some areas for recreation, something to that effect. And so that may have been why that was included. So the other thing I was just going to add, and we can expound on this more, but if it is the desire to withdraw the parcel that they're having a hard time getting the signature, there may be some consequences of an adjacent parcel because they're tied together for zoning purposes. In order for them to get their original permit for their home in 1980, they had to be tied together, and they signed a document attesting to such, and that's recorded on the property. So we probably need to treat those together either way.
Thank you.
Now, Bryce, the one property, and from my recollection in going through this, as Troyers came to us and proposed this, and we went through it, we kind of negotiated, went back and forth, and talked about what they wanted in the way of another parcel, another building lot that they could do. And from my understanding, we basically, as I perceived it, looked at it and said, well, to get one more building lot would mean that we'd have to have a development agreement in place, which is going to be a little bit more onerous than the 5 acres, which puts us at 9. And that does allow for a property owner to have one more parcel on there. And so as I view it, we said, okay, go back with this development agreement, try to get the signatures. We'd like to see all 120 acres, I think is what it was total at the time. Get the others to sign off on it as well. The one that won't sign off is about 6 acres.
Correct.
And so it's a real minor part or portion of the entire group that's there. And so again, as I look at this, we gave them direction to say, okay, we're willing to go down this path and go this way. try to get this accomplished so that we can see that the development agreement's in place, and then, as I look at it, then we can move forward. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Now, there's one hiccup, and that is that one won't. And then, of course, the second hiccup is that one now is annexed into Payson City, which is, like you mentioned, really kind of head scratching, because I talked with the mayor and others there, and they were, no, we have no intention of doing any annexing. But I guess when they did some negotiating, they found an advantage for their city, which is great. I think that's fine. So modifying that so that this can move forward, I think is beneficial. It's consistent with what we had been walking through all along.
Sure, I guess the only thing I would want to reiterate is there is some concern of exempting out only the 6-acre house with the parcel, because there was a signed document that the owner signed, who was the same owner at the time in 1980. For them to get their permit for the house, they needed to include this other parcel, which is about 50 acres. So between the two, it's about 56 acres. And so for zoning purposes, they're considered one lot. That's what the declaration does. And so I think we'd probably want them to be treated as under the same zoning district for administration purposes, because there's no way he could, if he stayed in the CE1 zone, he would be under he's grandfathered right now well, actually he's not, because he's considered a 56-acre lot, even though he has 6 acres. And so for him to legally separate his parcel, he would need to do a subdivision. If he's in the CE1 zone, he's kind of stuck with the 50-acre lot. So it's a little problematic to separate the two parcels from each other as far as their zoning. And so I think
To add to that, even if you did bring it in at 50 acres, you still wouldn't qualify, because it's currently, it'd be in violation of our ordinance, because it's tied to another piece. It's the yard space for the 6-acre parcel. So even that 50 acres would not be eligible, even if it was under the development agreement. So I think the best case scenario is to bring the 6 acres in, if they would come in, and then have them do a 9-acre parcel. And then they'd be fully legal. And then that 50 acres could do, the rest of it, 47, could do whatever they can get, 5 more lots, honestly, potentially.
Yep.
Okay, Troyers, any comments?
We appreciate your time, and we know it's been a long time coming. I guess we're not sure on the, Kent Carroll, he has just the 6-acre parcel, but he has another 50 acres somewhere else, or?
He split his property in 1980, or maybe it's before that. And when he split the property, he tied them back together through a declaration of zoning lot, tying the two pieces together, which means they're considered.
They're adjacent.
They're considered one parcel, even though they are separate parcels. So in order to, they have to be developed together. They can't be developed separately.
Yeah, I don't have the list, name of the owner, but it's 50 acres around the 2 homes right there on the canyon.
Yeah. So they're tied together.
Yeah, because at the
Legally.
time, it was a 50-acre zone when he got his house permit.
Yeah, so they would not be able to develop unless this other parcel comes in.
Sorry, just real quick. I mean, the 50 acres, I wonder if he had sold it after he did it, because he does not own, there's no.
We
land.
understand, he doesn't own, that's the point.
Okay,
He
so
doesn't
it's
own it,
Morley's now.
but it's still, they're still tied together legally.
Okay,
So it's a Band-Aid. These two parcels of property, 6 acres and the 50 acres, are tied together legally through a legal document. It's been recorded in the county recorder's office, tying those two pieces together. They have to be developed together unless they are, unless they can be each subdivided, meaning they can go through the subdivision process, which the 6-acre parcel would not qualify because it doesn't have enough area to do that. It would need to have 9 acres to do that at a minimum, and come in under this development agreement, which right now is not one to do either, so.
so, just in my mind, so I guess, because the Morleys, I think, own the 50 acres now, so you have 2 separate owners and 2. So I
That may be the
believe-
case, so they're stuck.
So the Morleys basically can't, and I know they have no intentions, they've never voiced to me.
They
that
cannot
have
develop
intentions to
unless,
develop.
they're tied to the 6 acres.
Excellent, yeah, that's, I think, the entire time, they are on board, they did sign with me, because
Sure.
they agree and they want to see development at the canyon. but they've never expressed any intentions to develop up there.
Yeah.
So maybe they understand that they might be stuck to and tied to.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Kent,
in their title.
and
the
that
property,
may
yeah.
be some of the guidance that Kent's receiving from his attorney why he doesn't want to sign, because he's got a lot of other logic behind it. I can't figure out. So
I don't know.
okay.
So we could proceed forward with taking those 2 parcels off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll do whatever we can. We just, the challenge we're faced with is we got everybody's signatures except Mr. Carroll's. He's a great guy, but there's some neighboring things there. His neighbor and he don't get along, and Kent's been really offended by the county pulling his
Greenbelt.
green belt on him, and he doesn't like the county. He kind of thinks the county's after him, and so we can't get him to befriend that and to get over that. So that's the challenge we're faced with, but we'll do whatever you tell us to do to try to do that. If we can pull those 2 parcels apart, that's fine. And we just need direction on what you want us to do.
I think,
reason that-
Rob, what you were saying is this should provide incremental value to the owner of the 6 acres or the 50 acres. There's an opportunity for some value enhancement
Oh,
because
absolutely. If it's in the.
if they could
development
get
agreement,
9 and they get developed, and so you would think that
Sure.
the logic there and the economics of this would suggest, I understand what you're saying about they're frustrated with the county, but
Yes, sir.
I mean, the flip side of that is that in order for you to do what you want to do, it sounds like the county might be willing to help this custom arrangement, right? That I know the attorney's office has spent a lot of time on, which also helps the other landowner.
Yes, sir.
And so, personally, I think when I hear that and I see that, it just feels like there has to be some persuasion there in order for us to move forward. It's just not quite as clean. Respect all the efforts that you've gone through, but it's still not a clean solution until we tick that final box. And there should be some incentive there to get that ticked.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, I've tried every way, shape, and form to sort of incentivize him. I tried to work out a way that we could, because we have horses and livestock on our property, to keep our green belt. We reviewed it with Diane Garcia to see if we had enough livestock to also cover his property and help him out to and lease property from him. But we don't have enough horses for our property and his property. So I tried to help him out there, and he understood I was trying to help him. But then in the back side of things, where he had his attorney review the development agreement that was prepared, and the development agreement in there, his attorney reviewed it and said that, you know, it labels him as a developer, and he didn't want to be labeled as a developer. And he had lots of little concerns I tried to resolve with him. But what I think ultimately it came down to, he said 2 things. He said, one, he wrote a letter that he signed himself. I sent, and I tried to send a notary there to get that letter signed, but his wife was sick, and she does not have a valid state ID at the moment, and so she wouldn't notarize for them. Anyhow, long story, we've been trying to do this for a while, and he said, I am 100% on board for signing just a regular rezone where you don't have a development agreement, stipulating a 9-acre minimum where you'd only have a 5-acre minimum, partially because he does not like his neighbor, that his neighbor was the one that did not want overdeveloping of the county up the canyon. And so that's why we're happy. You know, we don't want to overdevelop either. We just want some help up that canyon to maintain the land we do own. And both parcels, it's difficult for me to understand. One lady owns 2 acres, he owns 6 acres, we have 40 acres, and I'm struggling. I'm so excited. My dad, he just retired from St. George, and now he's up here living up by us up the canyon, and we've been busting kneecaps, cutting down hundreds of trees. Again, just trying to create a defensible space around our property and our house, and it's a labor to do with just one. And we have 2 landowners up there, so my brother-in-law, he helps a ton as well. But we're trying to get some more hands up there to man 40 acres, and where they have only 6 and 2, it's difficult. It's hard for me to try to persuade them that, you know, you need more people to maintain more land, and they just, you know, because they're doing well with their own little parcels, but we just need more up there, more houses, more development to help keep that defensible space. And anyhow, long story, he said he's all on board to sign the regular agreement, but he wouldn't sign this one because he knows his neighbor signed it. And the same thing happened before this, when she said she wasn't going to sign it unless it was a 9-acre minimum to sort of throttle back the developing. He said he would sign it. So we're at that sort of catch-22 where he won't sign, she won't sign, and trying to get them to gel. I don't see it ever happening unless, like I said, unless we can get creative here and try to bypass it or press forward in understanding that, we really, my wife, she's from northern Utah, Davis County, and I've just been very blessed that she it's grown on her living in the sticks, and she does not want to move anywhere. And so I'm excited that I want to take that fire that she has to want to build and stay in our area rather than just give up hope and move to Davis County and give up the land that we love. So that's what we're trying to do. And then, the letter that was written that he had signed, Mr. Carroll said that he has no qualms, no problems with us doing whatever we want with our property. He just doesn't want to sign a development agreement with the county. So, but unfortunately, we can't have that be part of the development agreement, and he won't sign the development agreement unless we figure something out.
Okay, thank you for those comments.
And I just was wondering if there's some way we could take off, does he have to have a developer on his thing that he signs? Because he can't develop, he only has 6 acres. So he's really not a developer. Can we take developer off of his?
All that it's referring to is in order to refer to all the parties, meaning the Kohlers, the Morleys, the Carrolls, the Kohlers, the Troyers, all those, the Rides. All I did was collectively call them the developer. That's all he's referring to.
So we could change that defined term.
We could change it. If we change it, it would require them to
The
go back
beautiful
and
property
get
owners.
signatures all over again.
And we'll do that. I mean, if that's what he's.
I could call them the flower child. I don't care. I mean,
And I don't know
it's-
why, for some reason, his attorney told him, he was struggling with it too, for some reason. I don't know why. I have no idea why. And
Have them tell you whatever they want that defined term to be.
okay.
We're okay.
that's all it says is
Right.
collectively referred to hereafter as the developer.
And Rob, he
Okay.
hasn't contacted you,
Nope.
right? We haven't
No
had a
one's
chance
contacted
to have a meeting with
We've-
him.
No one's talked to me about it. No one's
I didn't mean to
other
stop.
than the
I didn't mean
Troyers.
to- I didn't
Right,
mean to-
and that's,
I didn't mean to interrupt, sorry.
oh, you're fine.
We've that's it. We gave your number to his attorney. I've told him I would pay for his attorney to look through it. I'd paid his attorney to talk to you. I would do anything I need to get that taken care of, but I can't get hold of his attorney. I've called his attorney multiple times, and I've left messages with his secretary, with him, voicemail, and there's nothing coming back. So I just don't know. I will talk to Mr. Carroll and see if we take that developer off, if he would be willing to sign, if that's what's bothering him, and again,
Part of what I'm wondering, and I appreciate you being willing to do that, if that provides it a solution, I'm wondering if one of us, or we couldn't schedule a meeting with him with Rob, it's hard for all 3 of us to go.
oh, I know.
Right? We have to, I don't know.
Well, your
Rob,
time's,
Well, it's not the time, it's the legality of that. So we'd look to Rob how much trouble we'd get in if we did something like that, where we just tried to sit down with them and talk through this, because my personal preference is to just make this clean. You know what I mean? And because I think if we get this development agreement right and clean, it clears up some of the other issues with the land, the way it's tied together. It opens up some opportunities for the landowners if they wish to pursue it. So I think it's notable, but I'm just wondering if you think he would be,
I agree.
if he's mad at us, maybe that's the best thing to do, is to sit down and talk with him.
Conversation.
I don't know if it's make it worse or make it better, but,
I'm sure you could help, and we would appreciate the help. We would appreciate any help we can get. We've talked until he's finally just said, we went to his home, we've taken food, we've done everything we can to try to help there, but he got to the point finally where he just told my son, he said, don't contact me, contact my attorney.
Yeah.
And we're still friends, and we still have contact. We'll text back and forth. We'll text and everything's fine, and we just know we don't talk about that because he's asked us not to, and we respect that. But it would be very helpful if maybe, because his attorneys, I don't know what his attorney's telling him, I don't know. But we felt like if you could talk to his attorney, because attorneys, talking attorneys, that's great, because they know what they're doing, but I
My
can't.
guess is his attorney's gonna say he has a client control issue. And
Yeah.
saying that's what he's gonna say. I mean, the word developer is used 6 times in the agreement. It doesn't really,
You know, and I also agree, if we can go down this path and get it cleaner, that's better. But also on the other hand, I don't mind going down this and seeing if we can get it all cleaned up. But if we can't, you know, I still think that we can move forward. Personally, I think we can move forward with it. You know, I hate to have one holding everybody else up or holding other things up, but I think it would be nice if we could get that to work.
And we'll do anything, we'll attend that meeting, if you'll just let us know, we'll be there, we'll attend it, we'll bring him there. I know his wife has some real health issues, she probably won't be able to attend, but
you're welcome also to email me the attorney, and I'm happy to make a phone call if you like.
Right, to
should
me, that
start
would make
there.
sense. I think that's the
well, we
place
can
to
do,
go
we can
next.
totally do that. Thank you so much. You do much more than we could do, I'm sure.
I'm talking to
Okay.
him and see what the issue is.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Rob, on a time frame, how long do you think we want to look at this? Are we thinking 2 weeks?
Yeah,
or-
I think if you just, if they email me the attorney's name, I could do it within the week, and then, assuming we can talk to each other, yeah.
Right.
And then I can report back to you what he says, and then you can decide whether you want to meet with the Carrolls yourself. Maybe I can choose one of you, and I'll be happy to sit down with
Right.
you and the Carrolls, and we can talk about it, and their attorney. And I'll suggest that to the attorney, if that'll help.
Yeah, to me, that makes sense. So-
Would one of you
Works.
like to be the the head person to do that? You prefer to
We
do
have
it?
I don't care, I can do it, it's,
It's available.
if we're meeting close to Payson, it's right by my house, and,
Okay, that makes
you
sense.
know, I mean, if that's where they wanna meet, it's close to me, I'm
can do
over
that.
community development, so
Okay, we can
I'm
do that.
happy to sit down and try and work on it.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I would move that we continue,
Email me?
regular agenda items numbers 2 and 3 for 2 weeks.
Second.
We have a motion and second to continue items 2 and 3 for 2 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, we move to item number 8. Bryce, I just had a quick comment on this. I assumed whenever we're trying to take a county service and put it online, you know, right now we have a few departments investing in that to try to make it both more feasible for county employees to do their work remotely and also for county residents to access government services online due to COVID-19. I didn't know if there was an element of that to this. It's kind of the same thing as the junior livestock comment of, to the extent there is, then we should make a notation of that for COVID-19 funding.
Well, I think there's a note in there that kind of anticipates that.
Yeah.
There was a comment in there about that,
Yeah, I
because
think-
there is no funding set aside for it, even for the county portion of it. And there was some last year, but not this year. And the comment did talk about maybe it can be COVID-19, but we haven't gone through that process to get that, to your point. And maybe before we actually do an approval, we probably should have a conversation to see if it does fit that or not. Maybe not. Maybe it's one of those things we do it either way, but still, we should have that conversation.
So Anthony Loubet from the Attorney's Office is one that prepared most of this contract and worked on the negotiations. So I'll let him, I think he's participating via the phone. But your comments are well received. I think that's been under consideration. This is something that the community development really wanted and needs pre-COVID, and it's only been enhanced. The need's only been enhanced. And so obviously that's why we requested it in the budget, and there's plenty to cover it. And even if there's a way to get some reimbursement from some COVID money after the fact, we have enough to cover both sections.
Now wait, you're saying that there's money in the budget for it?
Community development budget, yes, in our approved budget. This was one of our asks from last year for the 2020 budget. And we have,
I understood that it was in 2019's budget, but it wasn't in 2020's budget.
it's in our current 2020 budget. In community development's 2020 budget, we do. We have,
This was one
This
of your
is
asks.
Anthony
Yes.
Loubet on the phone from the county attorney's office. And what Bryce is saying is correct. So it was approved, and a portion. The reason why it was approved too is that this money is coming from a special service district. So at least a portion of it, and so that money had only limited purposes anyways. So he was using a portion of that money as well as some from his other account. And then when it comes to the county portion, we reached out to Peter Brown and filed an email with him and explained it and talked to him. And he authorized the expense of using COVID money for it.
And it was Service District 7? Is that where this came from on the Service District side?
For planning and zoning, I believe that's 8.
8?
Okay. I
I
just
we
want to
have
make
had
sure.
those conversations with Peter then, it sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like Anthony has. And I think we were looking, because I don't think the county code portion was in the 2020 budget. So I think that's what Anthony was trying to address.
Yeah, the county portion was not, and that's why we went to Peter to see if it would qualify as being
We're getting
used for it.
We're getting much more bang for our buck by including the county code at this time up front. It's significant savings to get them all in together. And
For the
so-
county, it was like $1,400, and then it was $290
Yeah.
something dollars
Yeah.
after that per year.
Right, correct.
Yeah, and there was another cost about $1,000 per each code that was waived because of with the whole COVID-19 issue going on. They've kind of, as an exigency for them to try to kind of encourage people to sign up, they kind of waived that. So that's savings of $2,000 to $3,000 that we were looking at prior to COVID-19 happening. So when that happened, it just kind of emphasized, hey, if we're going to do this, we can get a pretty good deal right now.
Okay. All right, well, I'm glad that we have that for the record, noting that there's new demand due to this. I would entertain a motion on number 8.
Motion to approve regular agenda item number 8.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 8. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes 3-0. Item 14.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yvette Rice, Sheriff's Office. So you'll recall at our last meeting, we brought before you a request to enact a supplemental security services fee. At that time, we had requested a $59 per hour per deputy fee. After some discussion, we determined that we didn't feel like we adequately captured the additional administrative costs that would be involved with utilizing deputies for those services. So we requested some additional time to do some further research and come back with a better recommendation for you. Also, if you'll recall, Sheriff Smith wanted to look at this issue in conjunction with our law enforcement services agreement, the supplemental services that patrol sends to you quite frequently. In fact, I think there was actually an event on the agenda today. So what he did in preparation for this, you've seen some of the calculations that we've done over the past with respect to both of these agreements, supplemental security services and law enforcement security services. He reached out to all sheriffs in Utah, as well as all of the local chiefs in Utah County, requesting that they provide him the fees in relation to these types of services. He received a lot of response back. There were a lot of varying responses. Essentially, the fees that he got back ranged from a very minimum fee of $50 per hour to up to $95 per hour for participants. Some included a differing rate if there was a holiday, if they were working on a holiday or a weekend for an event. Additionally, a specific number of deputies employed would trigger the participation of a supervisor, so additional rates were charged for supervisors. So understanding all of that and the broad variety, looking at the totality of the information we had available to us, the sheriff would like to charge a flat rate of $75 per hour per deputy, except in the instance where if more than 3 deputies are required for an event, it will automatically trigger a supervisor be present For the supervisor presence, there'll be a flat rate of $85 per hour just for that supervisor. He wants to charge a minimum of 2 hours per event, regardless of how many deputies participate. And he is not interested in charging the IRS per diem rate that we currently have on our law enforcement agreement, the supplemental agreement, because he feels that the increases in the rates themselves will capture all of those administrative costs, including equipment, the processing of paperwork, billing, all of those layers of supervision, as well as the deputies' time themselves participating in the events.
I don't have any issue with that personally, but that's just the first part. And then do you have anything on the law enforcement side?
The same for law enforcement. He does not want a different rate. We had a lot of conversation regarding, we understand that the pay scales are different, but if you recall, last year we were requested while I was still in patrol to review our contract rate. I believe it was around mid-year, I can't remember exactly the dates, or maybe the latter half of the year. But we did a cost analysis, we looked at the total number of events that were held during a year's period of time. Given our rate that we were charging, looked at every individual that participated and their current rates of pay, overtime, equipment costs, all of those things, and we still more than amply captured the total, or as close to true and actual cost as we could. So he felt like with this significant increase, patrol would go from the current rate of $67.50 an hour to the flat rate of $75 or $85, depending on the circumstances. The supplemental security services
And
agreement.
I know on the law enforcement side, if I recall, it just oftentimes you're more equipment, the vehicles, et cetera,
Yes,
involved.
exactly.
But
There
you
are
still
more
feel like
equipment.
this rate is going to cover it. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So
we
the
do.
question I have is on the 2 hours instead of the 4 hours. So walk me through the logistics of
Why that?
when the clock starts and, and when it stops. Does it start when they leave the, security center or their house or wherever it is, or when they get off work, or does it start when they show up at the event?
Okay, so it will differ depending on whether they're doing a security service or a law enforcement service. For the law enforcement agreements, they are patrol-oriented. So that includes their vehicles. They're required to participate in their vehicles because there may be some traffic control involved. So that time starts the moment they leave their homes. It ends the moment they hit their driveway, okay? For security services, it is simply a security function. They are not expected to take traditional law enforcement action. There is not a vehicle involved, so it is the time that they report to their station is when the time would begin for them.
So the question I'd have on that then, does the overtime pay that the deputy that's doing the security portion of it, does that also start at the same time when they're at the facility, or does it start when they leave their home or their?
It would be the same.
It'd be the same?
When
Okay.
they report for their duty station at the event, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you. So, Rob, I suppose then, is that okay if we have the motion just to approve item 14, noting the prices and the conditions that have been presented?
Yes, it was noticed as, without specifics, so you could do that, yes.
I'll move that we,
Sorry, I know that it requires that an official request to change the fee schedule in relation to the law enforcement agreement will have to happen. So I will take all of this information back to patrol so that they can make the proper request through the commission for approval and adoption into the fee schedule.
So this will just be the security side, and they'll
This
bring
is
the other
only
one
the
back.
security side, because they have, I believe it does require an official request to amend that.
It's possible you also have to amend our law enforcement agreements
It will have to be reviewed as well.
to correspond with these new fees, adjusted fees.
So
But
I
that
mean,
would
it
come at
might-
a later
it-
time.
it might be better if we just have the whole thing come when it's clean, instead of,
You could do that. You could bring them both back at the same time. That's up to you. And have them all decided the same day, or you can get started and have this one.
is that gonna,
Today.
is that gonna affect you? I mean, in the sense of, I mean, well, obviously, we've had one that was on the agenda today.
So I guess we could,
So-
if we
Yeah.
approve this today, we could start collecting this sooner, right?
It's true.
It's just that the patrol one would have to come back anyway, and that's kind of what we had on
Patrol is gonna
today.
have to come back because they've not officially made any request for their fees to be reviewed or updated by the commission.
Now, Rob, when you made the point that we may have to, this would affect our law enforcement agreements, like what agreements are you referring to?
I'm referring to, the ones we're talking about here is law enforcement, and if we have agreements with Vineyard, or agreements with Eagle Mountain, agreements with others, it may affect those.
Does this trigger that?
No, it does not.
Those are separately
We-
contracted rates, right?
Yes,
They
yes.
are.
This is specifically in relation to supplemental security services and supplemental law enforcement,
Okay.
law
So this would
enforcement
not
services.
be,
Well, and that
unless
was
they
Not
patrol.
the
request.
contract cities
That's
whatsoever.
patrol anyway, this is
This
security.
is for
True.
events that
It
we
is.
provide security or law enforcement presence at.
Okay.
And those event holders contract with us individually to provide those services.
And almost all of those are one-time in nature.
Yes.
They're not ongoing, and so,
They may be on an annual basis, but typically, yes, the one event and then the event is over.
and one reason you would want to approve this today is if you have those in the summer, for example,
They are
This-
coming, yes.
you might want this to be approved so you can have those get started right away.
For security, I mean, for the security, not
Yes,
for patrol.
because technically, if you recall, we don't even have a security fee listed in our fee schedule. So in order to, I guess, legally be able to require that people pay for these services, we want to have our house in order. That's,
and
So
and
that
Yvette,
was
the
the
sheriff,
goal.
I mean, the sheriff has asked to update this,
Mm-hmm.
and you are standing there asking us to update this, so I'm curious, to me, it would seem like we can, by resolution today, adopt the changes to both.
okay?
I'm not sure we would need to, I mean, I don't know why we would wait for some formality on the law enforcement side. If you're asking us to change it,
That is the
Then we can
desire of
change
the
it.
sheriff. He would like to make the flat fees identical for both types of agreements.
You're okay with that, Rob?
I was gonna look real quick and see what 2-1-6 said of the county code, just to make sure it doesn't require a specific request.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
I don't
if
know
that-
off the top
if
of my
that-
head if it does.
and you know, for me, if somehow we've tripped over things and it's not covered,
You can come back.
then we can come back.
We can come
But we
back.
might as well try to get it done if we want to today. Okay?
I think the sheriff would appreciate that if we could just solidify all of it.
We're somewhere between ready for a motion and hearing from Rob.
I'm not seeing anything that, let's see, each request, no, I'm not seeing anything that would say you have to have a written request.
I'll move that we approve regular agenda item number 14 by adopting the scheduled fee changes as noted to $75 flat fees, 2-hour minimums, $85 flat fees with 3 or more officers present with a 2-hour minimum for both the security services and patrol services of Utah County Sheriff's Department.
Just one clarification, the $85 fee would only be for the supervisor.
With a supervisor
Yes,
present.
only for the supervisor. The rest would be charged at the $75 rate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second as stated in item number 14. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Item number 20.
Thanks, Commissioners. Josh Daniels from the Utah County Clerk Auditor's Office. So what this is a really neat way, innovative and new way for the community to share their thoughts with their local government leaders. So software company here in Utah County called Assemble Vote has developed this mobile app for anybody, in the community to kind of set up their own profile, link themselves to their community where they live, their county, their city. And then what happens is local governments can provide questions that citizens can then respond to. And kind of like a poll, it's usually kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's usually binary, but then there can be some additional follow-up questions for each topic where citizens can provide additional input. So what this is you could just have a third-party entity say, we're going to ask questions of the public through a mobile app, and then we're going to deliver the answers to local government. Or you could say, we're going to collaborate with local government to get an idea of what questions are on their mind about potential policy decisions they're going to make, and we'll help deliver those questions to the public. And then that's a lot more valuable because the feedback that we can receive as a county is more on point to the issues we're considering. And then the public, when they're weighing in on those issues, they actually feel more confident sharing their thoughts because they know that their local government leaders are actually listening and reviewing those responses. So this is an agreement to work with Assemble Vote kind of on a pilot basis, which will not be at any cost to the county. And then citizens in the county can sign up for this app, also free of charge. Again, it's Assemble Vote. Anybody can download it. I'd encourage everybody to do so, and then they can begin sharing their thoughts. The way this would work here in our county is every department could identify kind of a point of contact to help develop the content or the polls or the questions that would go out to the citizens. There's also some feedback. So elected officials, for example, could receive messages from people through this app. And really the vision is that we as a county kind of work together to identify some of the issues that we might be considering, whether it's a policy change or a program or a project, or we just want to get some feedback from the community about particular things. And we could sort of feed those questions into the app and then get that feedback from the county. Things that will make this more successful is broader use and adoption by residents. And so we're encouraged to advertise it and to share it with residents and encourage them to participate and use this app as a platform to communicate with us. So that's kind of an overview of what this program would do. And the clerk's office, we're obviously very interested in getting feedback from the public about things like the services we provide in elections, or the services we provide to the public through like our tax administration office, tax abatements, or marriage licenses. We've done some new things there. And so it is helpful to get feedback from people about what they want, what works well for them. And I'm sure other departments have examples like that they would like to engage in as well.
So thank you, Josh, for that. And I had an opportunity to visit with them months ago, kind of on what they were doing. At that time, they were talking about money. This time, I think they want to see where it goes for a pilot program. And I think it's a great opportunity for us as a county to, reach out, have input back and forth. A lot of it will come down to how we administer it and how it's administered countywide. I would assume that if it's going out on a county basis, that the commissioners would ultimately have the sign off on if that goes out or not. And I'm not even afraid of, if there's possibly different opinions, that they can both go out there, because that's what we're doing, is allowing for feedback, even with differing opinions that are out there. It would probably be better for us to even have some options for what we're doing. So I think that this will work well. It'll work well for us, kind of keeping that collaborative feeling about it. And we probably would never send anything out there anyway that was in a sense majorly controversial within, or else we'd be fighting against ourselves.
Yeah.
It would be more along the lines of just asking questions.
Right. Yeah, and we definitely want to be thoughtful and strategic about asking questions you know, if there is kind of a controversial issue, we want to ask the question the right way so that we're not provoking a response, because it's one of the things that the Assemble folks want to do is that they see the purpose of this application as a way to get away from the kind of charged political discussions that currently are happening on social media, and they're looking for a way to kind of have a more streamlined way for the public to actually share their thoughts in a way that it actually gets back to their elected officials, and it's kind of a better representation of what people's opinions are. And so, of course, as we look at it as if it's a poll, we got to be very careful how we ask poll questions so we get the best kinds of responses.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the commission chair to sign the agreement letter of intent as stated in number 20 on our published regular agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 20. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Item 21.
Greg Robinson, Community Development. This item is before you due to Sunridge View Plat C, or that you just approved, was a 2-lot subdivision. Originally, Plat B was a 7-lot subdivision. Because of an administrative rule that the state has governing drinking water systems, and the rule has to do with the number of people that are connected to a system. The health department has interpreted that to require any subdivisions that were over 7 lots to have a public drinking water system. Because of that rule, the Sunridge View subdivision was broken into 2 different applications. Since that time, the health department has looked at that interpretation, has changed their view, and the reason that Mr. Landis is asking for this waiver is due to the change in interpretation of that. And the attorney's office has given you a letter regarding their review of that, and I'll leave it at that. Mr. Landis is here, and also Rob Moore, who reviewed this. So.
Yeah, just real quick, I was trying to do an 8-lot subdivision, and already had a well on it, and they said you couldn't do that because you had to have a community water system, which was clearly beyond my financial ability to have a water system there shared. And so I complied and did 7 lots and did a 10.5 acre lot in the future, hoping to split it up. That interpretation changed. I thought it was incorrect in the first place because there were only 7 new wells and not 8. And they based the number of people per area on a 2000 census instead of a 2010 census, which would have allowed me to do the 8-lot subdivision. And this is already because I have to redo all of this. It's cost me over $5,000 in surveying and engineering fees when this should have been done, the 8-lot subdivision initially. So I'm just asking if it's possible to reduce that fee because I think it should have been done initially in the first place. 500 down to 20 or 500 to 100 or something like that. And I didn't realize this had to come before the county commission, but so I don't want to waste your time. So just asking if that's possible.
What's the cost? A lot of times the reason why we have fees in place is because it helps to offset the work that's done on an office level. When I first read it, my first thought was, I don't know why we would do that. I read your letter, explaining why, and I could see the dilemma that you're in with that. But I'm kind of looking at, they already went through kind of an analysis and put forth, the work and so forth on community development side, and now they have to kind of work it again. And so I'm just kind of wondering if the cost.
Yeah, I realize there was
not.
extra labor involved in that, but I'm thinking it was easier this time. Instead of 8 lots, it's just a simple plat, reserving the plat, so it may have been less time and labor involved, that's all.
Okay. Oh, so along with that is, I mean, you have to do the work twice in a certain extent, or what's?
Yeah, there was definitely, as far as the $500 fee that is associated with subdivisions, it definitely doesn't cover the amount of work that goes into subdivisions, but, so there was a significant amount, but still, that, it wasn't as much as what we normally go through. That doesn't mean that there wasn't still a significant amount of work, so.
Commission, Rob Moore, County Attorney's Office. I did review this matter pursuant to Utah County Code 2-1-7, prepared a review letter, a recommendation letter, and it's in the attached to the agenda request, basically recommending that you deny the request because we typically haven't granted requests for changes in law or interpretation or rules. We've typically looked at fee waivers due to hardship, financial hardships, and there has been no request for any kind of, or any information provided that this was a financial hardship. And so that's the reason for the request, so. It's up to you.
Right.
There's no real criteria.
I saw that, and I picked up on what you're saying there, and I focused more on just the work. In your letter, you referenced that as well.
I also referenced that,
and
yes,
so-
the staff did have to do the work for here. I couldn't tell you how much that is, but clearly $500 is not meant to cover the full-time staff use.
Well, if you also consider, like I say, what I think was an incorrect interpretation, my work and my expenses were enormous compared to what should have been in the first place, but I understand you probably know that, so.
Should also just highlight that the interpretation wasn't from community development, it was from the health department. So they were somewhat subject to whatever the health department told them at the time, and so.
Okay. I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we deny the request as written in on number 21 of our published regular agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to deny the request in regular agenda item number 21. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay. Before we turn to the work sessions, let's just decide, do we need closed meetings here today? I think we need one for personnel.
Did you?
Please.
I have
Need 26.
Litigation?
27 and 29. for
Correct.
Others that I saw.
Yes, thank you. If you do those, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we strike number 28 from our regular agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to strike 28. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
I'll make a motion that we approve and set a date, time, and location for closed meetings to discuss the various items in 26, 27, and 29 for this date at this location following our meetings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 26, 27, and 29. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, at this time, we have two scheduled work sessions. For the first one, we'll turn the time to you, Commissioner Ivey.
Yes, we had some individuals speak with our office, particularly Josh Grogan, who was interested in making a presentation. I believe Josh is here. We'd invite him to come forward and make his presentation. This is in relationship to potential opportunities for employees in light of the COVID pandemic.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Great to be here. Thanks. John Grogan from Access Loans. Really come here to talk about an innovative approach and solution to some of the financial hardships that may be faced by county employees as a direct result of COVID and spouses perhaps being laid off or other financial emergencies. So got a few points here. Of course, I mean, I think that none of you are any stranger to some of the difficulties that may be faced by county employees ongoing. But of course, COVID really amplifies these. And in many, many cases, as credit lending standards are being tightened by banks and financial institutions, those with low credit or poor credit or even no credit may find it difficult to access reasonably priced credit and then be forced to use things like payday loans or high interest, triple digit interest online loans, places like Czech City, etc. So again, I'm sure you're all very familiar with payday loans in general and kind of the pernicious effect of them. But I'll outline a couple of points just as a refresher. As you know, the state of Utah imposes no limits on the amount of a payday loan that can be lent. And the maximum APR by state law that can be charged is 658% APR. Frightening. There's no specification on finance charges, late fees, or hidden charges, which form the bulk of the profit margin for payday lenders. And quoting the Salt Lake Tribune from November 12th in 2018, this means it basically works out that payday loans in Utah charge an average of 459% annual interest. That's down a bit from the previous year, 482%, but that still approaches double the interest rate academic studies say that the New York Mafia charged for its loans in the 1960s. So a frightening state of affairs, and a good way to kind of place these loans in context, if you will. So another way to look at that would be, in order to borrow, if you had a financial emergency and you were forced to use a payday lender, to borrow $1,000 over the course of a year, and what happens is people take out a loan, they can't pay it back, they take out a second one. I'm from California, and 69% of people with payday loans have 6 or more loans. It's a very common occurrence to have 6 or more loans, so nearly 7 out of 10. So the cost of that, if you borrowed that $1,000 balance, this is regardless of fees or charges, to borrow that $1,000 would cost you $4,038 in interest alone, plus the $1,000 capital to be paid back, plus any other fees or charges that may occur. And of course, payday lenders and high interest lenders work aggressively to make sure that they happen. Last point, just to paint the picture, and also to bring a bit of kind of local color. There's about 50 payday loans registered to do business in the state from the Department of Financial Services, from the State Department. More context, that's 417 payday loan locations in the state, which is more than McDonald's, 7-Eleven, Burger King, and Subway combined. So easy to get a payday loan than any of those kind of things combined. So the Salary Access Program, which is becoming a more popular way for health workers and public sector workers to be able to do it. The unique nature of public sector workers and health workers is they have a low employee turnover. And so it enables us to create a program where we can lend at reasonable rates, one simple rate, without a credit check to any employee with a year's service. They can borrow between $1,000 to $5,000 without a credit check. The money is in the account the next day, and then they can pay it back over payroll at a reasonable rate with no fees, no charges, effectively a loan of guaranteed issue. There's no cost to the county to administer this either. We conform to all existing payroll.
What's the reasonable rate?
My next point, great timing. So the reasonable rate is 23%, 23.99% APR. Again, some color on that. The difference between that, so what you might pay on a credit card, or less than what you would pay for a cash advance on a credit card, even if you've got exceptional credit. The only difference being that that 23.99% is simple interest. It's not compounding interest. It's also assessed daily, so you'll be paying interest on a declining balance. You borrow $1,000 in January, you're paying 23.99% on $900 in February and $200 in November. So effectively, the cost of borrowing $1,000 over the course of 12 months is $135. And again, the key thing to remember here is these are not loans for every employee. They're only for employees who cannot go anywhere else. So much so that, we do permission, and if it's your intention, what we do with many of our customers is, if you'd like a link on the first page of the application to a local credit union that the county has a good relationship with, we often put that there to say before you apply, you can go to the credit union and see if they will apply to a signature loan or something like that. In many cases, these are people who are paying off payday loans. They can't go to the credit union. They don't have a relationship. They're not in good standing. They had to have their wages paid in them. There's a number of different reasons, or their credit is just, poor. To place that, again, to put it back in the context, that $135. As we've seen, you know, that stacks up for about $4,038. Is the interest charge alone on a payday loan. And title loans, which of course come with great risk for people who can't make their payments and lose their vehicle and means of transport, that's about $2,021. Their rates are circa 200% APR. Of course, because it's payroll deducted, all loans are paid on time. That's reported to credit bureau. The idea is that this lifts up credit scores to the point where people can go and access reasonably priced credit elsewhere. The rate will never increase. It may decrease over time as we launch with more employers. Again, like I said, the funds are in the employee's bank account within 1 business day, no credit check. And employees with previous bankruptcies are eligible, regardless of the number of previous bankruptcies. The only employees that wouldn't be eligible is if they're currently in bankruptcy proceedings. We'd ask them when the judgment date is. The next day we could fund the loan from there. So again, you know, just to sum up, you know, these loans have become tremendously popular, of course, and I think that unfortunately that's kind of a comment on some of the struggles that we've had even before COVID crisis and everything else that's happening. Many people are living paycheck to paycheck, which is widely reported. And without good credit, it's very, very hard to get out of debt traps and very, very easy, you know, to borrow from those high interest lenders if you have no choice. So these loans are almost a way of synthetically legislating to protect county employees where the state has so far been unable to, or you know, sometimes has no desire to, as payday loan and high interest lenders, great margins, can afford to pay lobbyists to fly in at the merest mention of anything to do with lending regulations at the state level. Many lobbyists are sent in. Contributions are made there. So it's sometimes can be quite difficult for the state. I know California's had a very, very hard time, and Utah as well, in doing that. So I'll just sum up with a couple of names. Davis County, actually, in north of the state, actually has a program like this. Tulare County, California, Imperial County, California, Pima County, Arizona, City of Tucson, City of Phoenix, City of Albuquerque, and many more, Many Health, Jackson Health. So again, it's uniquely available to county employees because of the low turnover, and we offer this to healthcare employees as well. So my proposal is that, you know, to take what I've said, give it some thought, and perhaps maybe look at running it for 12 months while we're in this critical period, and then to go back to employees and maybe survey them and say, is this useful? Do you find it? Is it something you want to keep? But it could be a helpful thing during the current downturn. Encourage any questions from.
I got a few questions.
Please.
First off, I don't understand the tie with the county. Is it just it's tied to the payroll, and that's the reason why?
Correct.
And so if that's the case, then the county then would have to track that to a certain extent too. And so what's the workload increase on a county basis to administer a program like this?
It's minimal. What happens is, payroll?
Yeah, I'd like to,
Fantastic.
I'd like to address that. So I am Ralph Barnes with HR. I can tell you that adding any type of deduction to workday and assuming that we're going to have an integration that is going to be no cost is not true. It'll be more work for payroll. It will be time and effort to create an integration that will make that feed, you know, directly to this service. So it definitely would be a workload increase for the payroll department to do something like this. And while I have the mic, I'll just say that we already have things in place. If the assumption is that, you know, the pandemic is causing need for employees, we've done, you know, the CARES Act with the 401k. We've created leave for employees that they can utilize. So we haven't really had any employees lose anything at this point in time. Now, hopefully that's going to stay the case, but I would say that this is just my opinion. You know, the business of payday or this, you know, type of loan is not something the county really should be involved in. That's just my opinion. But if you have any questions for me as the HR director, I'm happy to address that.
Thanks, Ralph.
You.
Be happy to compensate for any additional work that was done in order to implement the program.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, work session item number 2 is a discussion. Just turn the time over to you, Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, I'm gonna, thank you. I'll start off with this one. Ralph Clegg is here also, prepared with probably some statements on it and some thoughts on it, and with the day folding the way it has, it's kind of an interesting time. So, I'm just gonna start with, this news article that came out today and just, talk a little bit about it. Hopefully I'm not stealing any thunder from you, Ralph, on this. I put this on here. We did have some conversations with mayors, asked them their opinion on applying and understanding that the process to ask to go from the yellow stage to the green stage is basically just a letter. And as I understand it, and Rob, you can correct me or not, but that's more of an administrative function in a letter. But I thought it'd be appropriate to put it on here to talk on a work session, just kind of our thoughts. And in doing so, today, this article came out. I'm going to quote some of it, talking about the state commission recommends Utah transition to the green level risk category. And the very first, it says the data on coronavirus in Utah is good enough that the local commission believes that the state should move into a smart green risk phase, allowing nearly all Utah businesses to open. And other areas that I focused on in the article was, as of June 2nd, hospitals in Utah have yet to be overwhelmed by the pandemic, averaging at 61% capacity in the intensive care units for Corona-19 and non-Corona-19 patients in the past 14 days. Beds occupied by Corona-19 patients have not exceeded 11% of the total capacity for the last 2 weeks as well. And I find that interesting because the intent at the very beginning was to flatten the curve. And as we had kind of mentioned before, I think that's mission accomplished to a certain extent to where we're at now. And then they say the transmission rate in the state has been below 1.2 for 22 consecutive days, meaning that for every person who contracts the illness, another 1.2 people become infected. The commission reports a transmission rate of 1.1 over a 2-week period would indicate an adequate level of stability. And I know that our numbers, this is statewide, and Ralph can talk a little bit more about ours. They're a little bit different. A majority of people infected are being exposed to COVID-19 through a known contact, 81%, with 58 from someone living in the same house or same home. Scientific rates of at least 60% and ideal above 85% are favorable and indicate low levels of community spread. And so I found this, today refreshing that that's going to be a recommendation. And since we, I was going to propose that we send a letter forward. Maybe the letter would be modified. It'd be modified in the sense that we would support what the state commission is going to be recommending, or probably has already recommended. The governor does have to ultimately make the decision on this, and so I'm in favor, as I've vocally said multiple times, of moving to that green phase. It's affecting us in all kinds of different ways besides health as well, and I think it's past time for us to move. And so I just wanted to bring it out as a work session item. And Ralph, if you'd like to talk about specifically Utah County, where we're at.
Ralph Clegg from the Health Department. Thank you, Commissioner and Commission. As you mentioned, I was going to cite some of those same things from the article, because the new phase is the conclusion of assuming that the governor adopts them, as the new phases will allow nearly all Utah businesses the opportunity to activate a plan to open safely and help the economy move forward. And so it is termed a smart green phase, kind of a modification of the yellow phase from what I understand. But of course, Utah still remains in a state of emergency. With and the lower risk doesn't necessarily indicate our state is back to normal, but it does encourage individuals to continue practicing social distancing, wearing a mask in public. They conclude that face coverings protect the medically frail, the responsibility of everyone in the state. And the commission that's recommending this to the governor encourages individuals to wear a mask as a mark of common respect for the high-risk population. But at the same time, though, they do cite that the number of cases has proven to be a poor indicator of health risk for Utahns, since 99% of individuals who contract the COVID-19 do recover. That's the good news. That is good news. And as Commissioner Lee mentioned, hospitalization is a key factor. Utah has a low hospitalization rate and probably one of the lowest fatality rates in the nation. So in many ways, we're doing very, very well, and I think that's why they're looking at these possibilities. The intent was really of the stay safe, stay home was that everyone would follow stricter guidelines to prevent overwhelming the hospital system. That to date, I think is very much the case. Utah has been averaging about 61% use of 61% of the capacity of their ICU beds, with both COVID and non-COVID patients, meaning there's still people who are in ICU because they've had a heart attack or a stroke or something similar to that would put them in there, or surgery or something like that just put them in the ICUs. But a very small percent of that actually is actually COVID patients that are using that hospital capacity. And so, they like to see hospital bed utilization under 60%. For 7-14 days, like I say, the state's just over that. Utah County, we're under that. We're about 54%. Sometimes it dips down to about 50, sometimes a little lower. Commissioner Lee mentioned the spread from known contacts. And the state's been about 81% for the past 2 weeks. They like to see that at least over 60%. Ideally, they like to see it above 85%. In Utah County, we are at 80%, so just about where the state is. 56% of that comes from households, so they are encouraged that indicates there's low levels of community spread of the virus. The transmission rate that Commissioner Lee mentioned has been below 1.2 for 22 consecutive days. The dashboard on our transmission rate for the last 7 to 14 consecutive days is at 0.52, so we're doing well there as well. So now there's other areas that maybe aren't quite so positive, but overall a very positive thing. And the commission was highly recommending immunocompromised individuals who are at higher risk should really follow a stricter protocol and exercise caution, which is an important part of the key. And it's still important for Utahns to maintain social distancing, wear face coverings, practice good hygiene, and that I don't see that that's going to change anytime soon. So anyway, that's kind of where the state's going. Utah County's going well. Like I say, they're moving to the smart green phase, and so I don't know what your request, if you still want to consider a request or not. I'm not sure what the smart green phase is either. I've asked for that information. I'm assuming we'll get it with the governor's new order, which I think is going to come out tomorrow. It is 11 o'clock news conference. So hopefully we'll have it. If we get it, it's usually just before that. So there's to really see what this smart green phase is. I really can't tell you too much about that. I wish I could, but I can't. But anything that, there's a lot of discussion that maybe it's probably maybe a little early to move to something that might be considered normal or the new normal, but it'll be interesting to see what the move to the smart green phase does. But if the process for requiring or requesting a change is something that would go up to General Jefferson Burton, who is the director of the health department. It has to come through the health officer, and I have in all the cases where we've had somebody request an exception, I've simply passed those on and would do so if the commission wanted to do that as well. The previous ones, two were from cities. One was from a city that wanted to go from orange to yellow kind of immediately when the orange phase came out. That was denied. The other two were from swimming pools. One a city that wanted a change in what was required by the guidelines, and which was what the other one wanted as well. Both those were denied as well. So most of the ones that I know of that have been accepted when those requests have been made have been to remain in a more stringent phase, such as Salt Lake City and some of the cities that Salt Lake did, and Grand County and Summit and Wasatch County for an extra week. So,
Quick
but,
question.
any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, quick question for you, Ralph. First off, I want to say that I'm for sure supportive of, doing this. I think I would concur with Commissioner Lee. I think we need to move forward. My question is in relationship to this weekend's activities. Obviously, we saw very, very large crowds assemble, not just in Salt Lake. We had, hundreds of people gather in protest here in Provo and in other areas. What's statistically speaking, how long do we have to wait to see if there's, a huge spike as a result of that activity, or, are we thinking it's 2 weeks before we know if that had any impact? And again, I'm just asking that for informational purposes on that, but I want to emphasize that I am fully supportive of Commissioner Lee's proposal. I'm just curious there what we anticipate seeing from that, if anything.
Considering that most of them were shipped in from out of state, maybe they're already gone.
There you go.
Maybe.
Dr. Dunn talked about that on her newsletter or her news conference today, and indicated they'll be monitoring that over the next week to see if they see an impact from that. I mean, certainly in the last 4 days, there's been more cases in the state of Utah than, on a daily basis than we'd have previously. I don't think that's necessarily surprising, because the more people are able to get out and do things, the more possibility there is for exposure. And so I think even they acknowledge that the cases may rise as we go to a lower risk phase, and that might be anticipated. So
It's interesting. I've been watching the infection rate and also the recovery rate, and kind of seeing where that's at, and it fluctuates. It kind of bounces back and forth here and there, but it seems to stay pretty close. I mean, it's about 500. I don't know. Peter would probably know a lot better, but it seems like it's keeping pretty good pace with it as well.
yeah, like I said, most people do recover. 90% probably do recover. Unfortunately, there are deaths, but even in the death rate in Utah, we're doing very well, and I would say in Utah County we're doing very well. We, there's been I think it's a little over 110, 113 deaths in the state of Utah. Utah County is about 20% of the state. If 20% of those were ours, we'd be at 22-ish deaths, and we're sitting at 13. So,
yeah, I would like to. I mean, considering what's going on, which was just happened today. I would like to, writing up a letter and sending a formal letter and stuff like that before this and before the thing tomorrow seems a little probably premature. I personally would like to give direction, maybe you and if the other commissioners feel the same way, to send an email in support of what the state commission is doing, and then we kind of see what happens tomorrow as well.
sure. I think it'd be good to see what happens tomorrow and give it some time, see how it looks for business. A lot of our time right now is being spent, talking with the businesses through the chambers of commerce, trying to help them in any way we can get, to open safely. And they want to open safely. They want to protect their employees, and so we've been happy to talk to them about that and how they can do that. And like I say, it's impacted businesses differently. Some have thrived with what's going on. Certainly the travel industry has been really hard hit, and they will probably be the last to recover. So.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment on this. I mean, all along I've made a point. I think that it's important that we all acknowledge that there are costs, human costs, on kind of all sides of this equation. Human costs on the side of the disease and the spread, and human costs on the economic side, and all of the other negative effects that come from that. And, I think that we've always, as a commission, listened to your guidance as our county health director, and I've wanted to just follow that. I haven't wanted to push you to where you're uncomfortable. I'm also comfortable with where the state is at. I feel like as Commissioner Lee laid out, our hospitalization rate, our infection rate, our death rate, relative to other states, is doing pretty well. And our private sector stepped up, and the state and the county has stepped up to do everything they can to ramp up testing capacity, and the private sector has cooperated with the guidelines. And so I think on that side, the state's doing very well. And then on the other side as well, we were one of the first states to open, and we do have economic activity happening right now. And there was a time where, you know, our governor was being criticized pretty sharply for being, you know, one of the states that hadn't had a shutdown, right? And our county took some of those criticisms. But overall, I feel like it's been a pretty well-balanced approach that has had, you know, I think this is painful for everyone, so you don't really want to say good results, but at least relative to other states and other communities, it's turned out pretty well. And so for me, I generally don't like to send letters. You know, if I have a question, I know the governor will take our call, any three of us. I know that
General Burton will.
And General Burton will as well. And so I think that I'm happy to collaborate and ask questions where if I think there's something that's unique to our county. But overall, I'm comfortable with where they've been leading us. And it sounds like even tomorrow they're going to, you know, Commissioner Lee, maybe you were just a couple days ahead of where the governor is going to land.
Maybe so.
And so that's my perspective on the issue.
And thank you, Commissioner. You're right. It is a delicate balance between, you know, health and I mean, do we weld everybody's door shut, or, you know, do we have something open, you know, and do we close every business, or is there some balance? And it is a balance. And since this is a new disease, I don't think anybody has all the answers. I think everybody's trying to do the best they can, and you know, we've taken the approach of trying to be in line with the state, not go more stringent than the state. I feel good about that, you know, because of that balance we're talking about. But I can't say I have all the answers either. So.
I have a really good friend who's one of the leading doctors in the state, and he always reminds us we're practicing medicine.
Yes.
Right? And I think there's validity to that when it comes to this, you know, with the science and with the medical stuff. But when you're discovering and working through new territory, you're practicing.
That's right.
You're trying to get it right, and you learn from your mistakes, you make course corrections, and you keep plowing forward. And so I think that's something important that we all remember, that this, what you said, this is uncharted territory, and we're practicing science, and we're practicing medicine. That means we learn and we get better.
I agree. That's
So
where we are.
I would hope that maybe you could send an email off to just General Burton and tell him we're supportive of, you know, his.
Did you want me to send that email, or did you want to send that email? If you
You
send
have
it
the
to me,
direct
I'll forward it to him if you'd like to do that. I can do that. Okay, that's great.
Okay. I think we've hit our entire agenda. Is there any other general public comment? Seeing none, we'll now move into our public meetings, or our closed meeting.